Good morning, everyone.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mahassan El Quadri, and I am the Amina of crypto. This is CoinTalk Africa. I welcome you all on board. On today's edition of CoinTalk Africa, we will be talking about NFTs. Are they just a bubble, or is this just the beginning? NFTs are largely misunderstood, not just by people outside of technology and outside of the art industry, but also many traditional level artists. Essentially, our goal for today's edition of CoinTalk is to help create some clarity and understanding and create a stronger or realize a connection between the old and the new within the art industry, which we believe might have been bridged or disrupted due to the advent of this new, courageous and amazing technology that we call NFTs. So with that, I would like to introduce our panel of experts. We have Dr. Tunde Baba, who is an art historian and artist in his own right, having been an artist for over 20 years. He is the curator of several national entities within Nigeria, and he's all in all, an art industry badass. Let me put it that way. Then we have Mr. Kofi Obuobi. Pardon me, Kofi, if I didn't get the pronunciation of your name right.
Perfect. That's right.
Practiced it. Kofi is a 3D heritage artist. He does amazing metal work. He's also a sneaker designer and a fashion designer, and he literally owns a fashion company. He's also into product design. He has a long list of achievements, right from back when he was back in school, where he was the best student in his department and the HOD's favorite. He designed the trophies for some of the biggest award events in his country, national awards. He's done a lot of work, and I mean, he's also affiliated to several institutions in the UK where he studied as well. We also have Cherie Margaret Ngigi, who is an up-and-coming NFT artist by her own admission, but she has a huge portfolio of work outside of the NFT community. Cherie is a fine art photographer who does a lot of her work tackling issues or expressing issues that concern women and promotes the female experience. Cherie is Kenyan, and like I said, she's a new NFT artist, and she has been quite successful, even though she's quite new in the NFT industry. That's a testament to the quality and beauty of her work. Finally, we have Mr. Daliso Ungoma, who is our in-house celebrity. Daliso is an expert in metaverse-related technologies, so VR, AR, XR. But more than that, the reason why we invited him to our panel today is because he's an NFT art aficionado and a huge collector. And what that allows him is it gives him the privilege of understanding the industry from the perspective of a collector, of an appreciator, of someone who has invested in the arts and who is seen as a voice to be listened to and considered when it comes to determining the value of work of artwork within the industry. So Daliso himself, in somewhat, is like the new version of Dr. Tunde. So with that, I would like to start the event. And the question is this: where does the value of an NFT come from? How do you value an NFT? How do you justify the valuation of an NFT?
I think it's the same question as to how does the dollar actually attain its value? It's the question of money. That, for instance, are we saying that we're trusting this foreign entity called the United States of America to actually claim some sort of value to a fungible token, meaning that, for instance, if you give $1, you can actually get $1 back, right? So the thing is that with non-fungible tokens, it's there's a whole lot of things that actually play out, but I'll probably keep it very simple. Is this the fact that there's a social contract that I think one person is believing that, for instance, when they pay for something, they actually get a certain amount of value back, right? So this has been something that's been very heavy in the gaming industry, and it's kind of odd that the gaming industry has been very against NFTs. Not to say that everybody in the gaming industry is all about it, but you think of like yeah, but like for instance, you think of like Candy Crush and all this other stuff. You pay for these tokens, they have no redeemable value just in the game itself. So when it comes to NFTs, you can actually accrue that value across different platforms. So there's that interoperability. As to the value, it's all subjective. I still necessarily say that it's the same thing. For instance, just because you buy a Picasso doesn't mean that you actually own the copyrights to the Picasso. You just own the actual artwork. The family or even Picasso, if you're still around, will most likely still retain that. And with NFTs, to keep it very simple, is that it's a digital signature. Just behind me, even though it's a blurred background, is that I do have a few books which have actually been autographed. The simplistic analysis would be, what is the difference between you watching a show on, because most of us are actually in Africa, on DSTV compared to actually watching a pirated copy? Not much, right? But if, for instance, you were to try and sell a duplicate of that same recording, in a sense, you can think of an NFT being a signature. So let's just say, I'm just trying to think of any particular artist that actually just comes to mind, Denzel Washington. So let's just imagine that Denzel Washington had actually put a physical signature on a DVD copy of one of his movies, right? Maybe John Q and the likes, right? That probably has more value compared to if you just go into a shop and buy it and it's just another copy. So that's literally what NFTs are actually trying to resolve. As to how they actually accrue their value, it's just very subjective. The thing that actually works in my favor is that it's all meme culture. As in, I think anybody who doesn't know what a meme is, I'll just simplify it, is that we've got our genes. So obviously here, we all are as humans. If, for instance, you necessarily find a partner, you can procreate, and you necessarily have offspring, right? So that's necessarily how you look at genes, where you actually pass on the species one from another. With meme culture, it's the passing of ideas, right? So if you think of William Shakespeare, do you remember his offspring or do you remember his plays? I think most people actually remember him for Romeo and Juliet compared to, I don't know what the lineage is right now. So that's literally it. And it's like a tie-in with finance. And when it comes to the accruing of that value, it's primarily just subjective. As in, I'll even talk of the fact of right now, it's very speculative. We can probably go into the pricing and the likes later on, but I tell you that it's very speculative, that when it comes to the valuing of anything, it's very subjective as to where people are. So I'm a South African, I reside in Africa. I might actually have a different value compared to like a European who might be, let's just say, a Romanian. So that'll be East Europe in terms of how they actually view the arts, right? So it's the same thing, even when we talk of a dollar is just on the basis that America has actually been able to get everybody to be convinced that this is a store of value, that you can actually use this in any part of the world and people can actually recognize it, right? But if I were to actually use like a Zim dollar, as in, I don't know what the situation is there, right? But not a lot of people know about Zimbabwe. If I were to just like chuck in a random country like Myanmar, maybe some people might actually know about Myanmar, but that currency doesn't hold that particular value. So you can actually see that there's all this power play in one form or another. And I think when it comes to the accruing of the value is that I think it's very subjective. It's the same thing. If I were to take baby pictures of my son or my daughter, they might not necessarily accrue the same value compared to a person who might necessarily be going through a different situation in their life, right? So that's just my take when it comes to how value is actually attached to NFTs, or I think, at least in my subjective view of art overall.
He had mentioned, Daliso had mentioned about the power play, the politics of the arts. And I do think that actually plays a very significant role in how we are going to eventually continue to value NFTs. Right now, it's almost free for all. There are no guidelines per se.
Right.
People, we've had people of no solid background in arts making quite a whole lot of money from the NFTs. But then there are structures, there are institutions that guide, how art is done, how art is marketed, how it is presented across the world. And I dare say that those institutions are very mindful of the happenings in the NFT field. On the scene right now in terms of NFTs. And I've seen a few large museums, big museums in Europe, thinking about how they can incorporate the NFTs into their collections and all of that. And what would happen with that would be that they now play the role of who sanctions the value of NFTs in future. We're going to have that happening in future. And I think,
okay, well, I would have to disagree with you, Dr. Tunde. And the reason why I'm disagreeing with you is because I don't think it's something that's going to happen in the future. I think it's something that's happening right now. I think you're quite right when you say that it's gotten to a point where people who don't have art experience or skill are able to benefit from the NFT industry. Let me put it right now. And it goes to the question as to whether, as to who or what determines the value of a piece of art. But the argument of the new school, I would put it, is that the whole point of NFTs is to disrupt an aged institution that has held that power, the power to determine the value of a piece of art, or to determine even whether a work constitutes art or not. A lot of artists today who are benefiting from the NFT community would want to say or argue or believe that the fact that NFTs have made it possible for anybody any individual who has access to determine the value of their work, or even determine whether their work is art or not, by putting it on the blockchain and therefore declaring it a piece of art and putting it up for sale, in itself is part of the solution or resolution that NFTs has brought.
I agree with you on that. And I think that's actually happening right now. However, I think it's a temporary measure. I think it's going to be around for just a while, long enough for those who are quick enough to, make their earnings from it. I think, because I'm on several platforms, museum platforms, and these discussions are coming up. People are actually looking into that already. And people are already, the museums and galleries are already looking at how to control this, because it's their belief. It's the belief generally that free-for-all thing will disrupt the market. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of money to be made in the market by everyone, especially the guys in traditional art collecting markets. And as much as possible, they'd want to also control these. And when I say they, I'm talking about people in the museums and the galleries, basically, of which I am one of them, as it were. And, they established protocols And these protocols will be brought into the NFT field as as everything else that happens in the world. However, at this point in time, it is vital that we as Africans key into that now and make the necessary name that we require, get the necessary publicity that we require, so that when this thing actually gets institutionalized, which it will, those who are on the playing field right now will be the Picassos of the NFT world and the Michelangelos. I did mention Michelangelo is one of my favorites. So Michelangelos and yeah, pretty much. But to think that it will continue as it were, that just about anyone can bring whatever they have is not, I mean, that's not going to happen. Because what you find at the end of the day is like the forces of demand and supply kicks in after a while. When the collectors have collected the bit they have right now, they get to a point where they start to examine what they're collecting. They start to want to know why they're collecting. They start to want to know the reason behind the production of what they're collecting. These are parameters that actually will determine which artist or which art will be collected in future. But for now, because it's still relatively new, and everyone else, I mean, there's still such a hype about it right now. You might find people collecting just for the fun of it, but it will get to a point where they're going to start to query what they're collecting, and they're going to have to start to, require people to advise. We'd actually probably have Daliso advising,
Okay. Dr. Baba, thank you very much for your take on the issue.
I think I agree 100% with what Tunde said. The migration of institutions to NFTs is unavoidable. It's unavoidable, and they're gonna come and they're gonna, sort of regulate or how art is valued. And also going back to the first question that you asked, how do you value an NFT? I'm not very big on PFPs, so when I'm speaking from like an artist perspective, or somebody who sells art photographs, or just looking at one-and-one art collection, I think the value of these pieces of art as NFTs, I will go back to just the same thing that has been happening in Web 2, the traditional way, where there's value in that. You look at the artists themselves, how they came about producing a certain artwork, I don't know what kind of artwork they'll be creating in the future, the investment in the art themselves. I mean, maybe it could go back to the artist himself, him or herself, and the value that the artist creates for their art. And that may add to the value of the NFTs that they produce.
Mr. Kofi Obiobi, would you like to add your perspective to this issue?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. So I think we are getting something off the main thing here, like in terms of NFTs. NFTs are not just artworks. That's what we have to understand. The technology that gave birth to NFT is the blockchain. Okay, and the blockchain is something that is like really revolutionary. Why do I say that? The blockchain technology gave people the opportunity to have evidence of what they own. In what way? So every information on the blockchain is shared across every node that is a computer of anyone who is on the blockchain to check and know whether they own this particular thing or item or not. Now, the NFTs come in the form of, they could be collectibles, they could be game items, they could be digital art. So art is just part of it. Art is not the main thing. It could be tickets, event tickets. It could be records, of history, right? And so Bitcoin, as it were, is unprogrammable. I mean, they are trying to do something about it. But what it means is that when you compare that to the platform on which most NFTs run, which is the Ethereum blockchain, Ethereum is a programmable platform, or like blockchain, right? What it means is that there's what they call a smart contract and other things that are associated with the blockchain, which tells what the item that is on the blockchain should do. Okay, so on the blockchain, you have NFTs. Now, NFTs, like I said, are not just artworks. You see, you can put music on the blockchain, you can put art, you can sell tickets on the blockchain. Now, these are controlled by what they call decentralized applications, or dApps. And these decentralized applications are controlled by these smart contracts, which give evidence of ownership. So art is just one of it. Art is not the main thing. And so it is imperative on our part to look at the technology, not the art. Art is just one of it. And so the value in it is the technology behind it. And so some years ago, there was what they call Web 1. And Web 1 was when Netscape Navigator and all that were here. You can only probably sign in or watch, probably couldn't sign in. You can just watch the internet and can't really do anything. And then there was Web 2, when, you know, social media came, high five, you know, MySpace and all that developed into Facebook and all these other social media platforms, where you input your information and therefore the platform owns your data. That's why they push adverts in front of you. And as it were, technology grows. I was saying that earlier. And so we are in a place where Web 2 has improved to Web 3, which gives the opportunity to have blockchains running on this. And blockchains are just information in blocks. And because there's evidence that this is here and it's an open ledger, everybody can see it. And you are able to contain certain items, which includes art, in there for people to verify who bought it, at what time, and who is it with now. It gave the opportunity to create all these digital assets. And so the beautiful part about being an artist and giving opportunities to artists on this, you know, NFT bars is the fact that the smart contracts, which is attached to most of these blockchains, and Ethereum is one of the blockchains, there's also Tezos, there's Solana. What happens is the smart contract is you're able to write a smart contract and say, anyone that buys my artwork and resells it, 10% should come back to the seller, right? The owner. So sometimes I'm there and I sell an African mask. I'll be there at the end of the month, I receive some money. And it's because somebody resold my artwork, and that can never be happening in a traditional system. You know, so those are some of the values. When you take music, most artists that stream music will wait for probably months or years to get their song streamed for them to make money. I mean, you distribute a song on, let's say, DistroKid, and then it goes to iTunes, Tidal, Spotify, all those websites. And over time, you stream and you make money. But with this, you can sell your music to your fan base. They'll buy your NFT, and then there's what they call an unlockable content, or kind of like a folder that you have access to only when you buy the music, and then it has all the songs in the album available to you. Now, this is the beautiful part. If the smart contract was written by you or even the platform, you can write a smart contract and say, any listener of my music can resell the album and also make money. So the value is with the technology, not the artwork, not the music, not the tickets, not all those applications that the blockchain technology that gave birth to NFTs is bringing or has brought. So it's the technology, not, you know, the NFTs.
Okay.
This question goes to everybody on the panel. I'm hoping you all address it from your own perspective. Do you believe that NFTs have fixed the art industry?
Sure. If there's anybody, okay, I can go first.
Go ahead.
Nobody else is.
Go ahead, Daliso.
I just see it as it's another revenue stream. There's this whole thing of NFT artists. I'm like, you're an NFT, you're an artist who actually sells NFTs. It's like you're an artist who sells prints, you're an artist who sells books, you're an artist who sells different mediums, in a sense, right? So the only argument I have, I wouldn't even say it an argument, is that with NFTs, it's permissionless. And I think sometimes that's actually lost on people. With it being permissionless, is that I don't have to use PayPal, I don't have to use Visa, I don't have to use MasterCard, I don't have to use Swift, I don't have to use M-Pesa. There's a common understanding amongst everybody that, for instance, when I send you a certain amount of ETH, I talk of Ether in this scenario, that you actually receive it. And on your side, you can necessarily translate it into whatever currency that you want. I know that Ethereum has been down bad in terms of USD terms. I think it's probably now hitting around like 2,600 USD, but it's kind of ironic. In 2020, it was worth under 300 USD. So again, I wouldn't necessarily say that this is like a one fix all solution, but it does have that situation where you do have people where they want to buy art, different art, right? And I think we can obviously dive into like race politics and the likes, but at least it actually just gives anybody the liberty to actually buy whatever they want. So yeah, for myself, as an I think I'm heavily weighted West African art, predominantly Nigeria. Have no real issues with Nigeria, right? But I love the art. It's great art, and the guys are actually hustlers, right? In South Africa, there's still quite a lot of skepticism, and I think it obviously comes with like the soft life, that things are actually quite easy, as in there's a high unemployment rate in South Africa. But the thing is that if you were to come here in South Africa in terms of crypto, you'd realize that things are very easy, right? Whilst with the rest of the continent, it's a different story altogether. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this is like the silver bullet that actually solves you not being able to sell your art. But I think it's just an alternative that actually just makes it easier. That again, we're here on a Zoom call. This Zoom call is necessarily being broadcast across the world, compared to the fact that you actually have to go into a physical gallery in a physical setting. So even for myself, it's like, yeah, there is a gallery that I know there's a more like technology based around 20 kilometers from where I actually stay, but we're on the internet. It really shouldn't matter. The only thing that actually does matter is probably the hardware to actually interact with those particular experiences in a sense. So that's just my take. Not to say that this is like, hey, it's going to solve an issue where you're an artist that you can make a whole lot of money. Is this a case or it's an alternative that probably makes it easier, similar to like an artist? You don't have to be an opera singer in the Colosseum. You can necessarily actually just send a person a YouTube link or even like a Spotify or Apple Music so people can actually listen to it from wherever they want. And then obviously the centralized body would be the one that actually gives you a payout for how many times people actually listen to your music.
Thank you, Daliso. Kofi, from your perspective, from the perspective of an artist who delves into traditional artwork as well as more contemporary artwork, what would you say to the question of whether NFTs has solved the problem of artists, particularly artists within the African sphere? Because acknowledging the restrictions or the difficulties of artists globally, it's more pronounced in on this continent. So do you feel that NFTs have solved the problem?
Yeah, it has solved the problem. Yes, I would say it has solved the problem, but not to kind of like throw the traditional system under the bus, no. Because I mean, everything that is happening now occurred because of what was. It's the buildup of what was that makes what is happening today able to function today. For me, NFTs has given myself and a lot of other friends of ours in the Ghanaian NFT community. So we have this group, Ghanaian NFT community, we have African NFT community, and a lot of people who may not even afford to get a common laptop to work, or a computer, or even a phone, or not be able to have the opportunity to display their art. They are able to express themselves and show what they can, and even feed their families, right? And so when you look at those things, those opportunities that the technology brought, I wouldn't say it has solved the problem at a point, because as it were, I would never be able to get into the traditional, art system where there's somebody who curates and all that. I have a good friend, Jeremiah Kwashi, who is into it and has made a lot of strides, but I couldn't do that. And so the NFTs gave me that opportunity. But at the same time, I still admire the traditional, system, I don't like using the traditional system because it is not traditional. It's like another existing system, right? But it has given new opportunities to everyone. To re-echo that, there's this article that was written by Joseph Schumpeter, who was an economist in 1942. It mentioned creative destruction or disruptive technologies. And what disruptive technologies do is they remove or bypass existing long-established systems, and it gives new opportunities to new people. If you consider these cell phones we are using, at first they were not touch screens. Somebody came, brought touch screen phones. It took people out of business. It gave opportunities to new companies. People lost their jobs, but it gave opportunities to new people. So these NFTs are giving opportunities to new people, even though there have been centuries-old established systems. And so for me, like I was saying earlier, technology doesn't move backward, it moves forward. And so we have to look into ways where we can merge both worlds. And some galleries are doing it. They have LED screens, screens where they display art, which have about 3 or 5 second animation. So that's something nice being added to the original way of a canvas painting. So now you can have a painting that is a little bit animated and more engaging. And we know how pictures or videos do when even you use them for art. They are more engaging than just text or just a picture, So all these are like, back again, technology based that is giving value to it. And so it solved the problem because it gave new opportunities, but there's also the old system, which is also functioning, brightly, vibrantly.
Thank you, Kofi. Shuri, what would you say to the question as to whether NFTs have solved the art industry?
Well, I think personally, they have solved some art scene issues for me. Like one, there isn't like the old system of working with middlemen, like the galleries, having to get to collectors through the galleries. I have the opportunity, and I've gotten the opportunity to interact with my collectors directly on social media and, speak to an audience. And, what I love about the NFT Twitter, or like selling art with NFTs, there's like a community sort of, there's a community going on. And I think that has been one of my biggest blessing, to find a wide, like different variety of artists, it helps so much, or it has helped me having like a large number of people, or what we now call a community around me, because you're in the same journey, which I don't know, I just didn't have like before coming to NFT Twitter, or before joining on the NFT space. And having now the chance to sell my work directly to collectors, cutting off the middlemen, the galleries, and going 50-50 on sales, now I'm able to get more like to just make more money out of my artwork. And even I love the you know, what Kofi was saying earlier on there's now royalties. You can, you know, once your work is resold in the secondary market, you know, you get a certain percentage. That was unheard of. And you know, yesterday I was actually got another, like what do you call it, like a you get the OpenSea notification, you know, you just got paid from royalties. And
Right.
and you know, I was also wondering, okay, this is very interesting. I love it here, you know. This is unheard of, like in Web 2, I would call it, or in the traditional art scene. And you know, I think that is wonderful. And I would also not like completely ignore the traditional art scene, or you know, because there's also, you can't beat the value of the, when you look at art pieces in physical form, or you look at prints, you look at sculptures in galleries, it's not the same as looking at it on the screen. So you can't still ignore that. But I feel like NFTs are solving some solutions, a lot of the solutions, you know, artists getting more financial freedom and more hope that, you know, they can actually make a proper living out of their art. And, you know, there's a community, you know, you get appreciated. There are people around you, who can just help you figure things out. That's what I will say.
Thank you so much, Shuri. Dr. Baba, what would you say to this question? Have NFTs fixed the art community?
Well, I mean, I'm going to have to agree with everyone else has spoken that the NFTs have actually fixed some aspects of the art, you know, the troubles in the art world, but not quite everything.
Please feel free to go into the things that the NFTs have not fixed. And in fact, if you can, tell us more about the things that the NFTs have worsened or ruined or caused.
No, I don't think in any way that the NFTs have actually ruined anything or made worse anything. In fact, I think I mean, their whole concept has been, you know, able to help the African artists and artists across the world to be able to have access to their, you know, to their collectors directly. And that's always been a problem. And, you know, Sherry and Kofi had also mentioned, you know, the issue of royalties. In, you know, the traditional museum system, the gallery system, you're entitled to royalties, but you won't get them after a resale. You might not get them depending on who your representatives are in the galleries or the museums. However, it's not every artist that's, you know, in tune with the concept of the NFTs. For instance, you know, the older generation, I'd say some people from like about my generation.
I was going to say just now.
You know, they're not quite yet in tune with it. And they're still very skeptic about it. But the thing generally that I think we can't solve with NFTs is the fact that the arts, if we're talking about art now, you know, because I'm aware that, you know, you can deal with, you could do property sales with NFTs and other things. But when you're talking about the arts, there's a feeling you get when you're in front of an art piece, which is missing when it's virtual. I was in the Alta Pinakothek in Berlin a few years back, and I took a picture with one of Rembrandt's works. I'd seen this picture all my life in books and on the internet. And I'd never got the opportunity to actually stand in the aura of this work. I stood there, took a picture of it, took a selfie of myself with the work, and sent it to my father, you know? But that feel you can't get with virtual art. You can't get that. And I think those are the issues that, you know, we can't solve with the NFTs. That's my perspective. Art generally, you see a sculpture, you want to be able to look around it and feel whatever the artist was feeling when he was contemplating that work. it's a bit difficult to do that because you can't really be in that presence of that piece of art. Well, maybe with 3D visions and stuff like that, you might start to simulate that effect, but it's not the same thing. And that's actually where I'm having a problem.
It seems that you're still, despite how much you already know about NFTs, quite reserved about
no. You see, you know what?
The perspective that I and perhaps members of the audience might have is that despite how much you already know and despite how much you might be able to acquire in terms of information and education about the NFT industry, that you would still just, okay, give it a nod and say, okay, yeah, I know you guys exist, but I'm not doing that with my
No. I think, in its own right, it's a success as an arm of the arts, if you get what I mean. However, there's a different feel when you're in front of a painting as of what you feel when you're in front of a sculpture. So there's a different feel with the NFTs also. Okay. You get what I mean? But to say that, the advent of the NFTs have actually solved the problems of the arts, that's not true. Let Daliso come in now. I see him raising his hand.
Yes. Good. Daliso, you're very polite.
No, the things that I think I always just want to give people the room to actually say what they want, because again, is that I think it actually just disrupts the flow if it was something I just like butt into the conversation. But I just want to add on to the conversation is that I think it's like what Mr. Baba was actually talking about is different generations, right? I probably fall within the millennial spectrum, but I'm probably more digital than I am actually physical. And you'll be very surprised as to how much stuff is being done in the digital realm that you would not necessarily be able to differentiate from the physical realm, right? So I see that there are quite a lot of questions, and I'm hoping that Mahasin will be able to actually just like get those questions addressed. But just to give perspective is to say that for myself, when it comes to NFTs, I've been like, quite a lot of these NFT artists have been like, oh, I've done like a physical artwork, yada, yada, yada. And for me, I'm like, yeah, I've had a nomadic lifestyle in a sense. And right now I've actually been able to stay in my current place for like the last 4 years. Whilst when I was in uni, it was like every single year or 2 years, I'd actually just moving from one place to another. So to carry physical pieces, it just became a bit of a pain. I'm like, for instance, it's a bit blurred, but the background is that I do have a bookshelf. And anybody who actually knows anything about books is that they are heavy, as in they've got a whole lot of knowledge, but they are heavy. And I think NFTs and any of these like digital solutions have actually been able to resolve them. It's not to say that that's the only way that people can actually experience them, but I'm very digital natives that physical is not really a big thing for me.
Part of what Dr. Baba is talking about, and sorry, because I did come in there.
No problem.
The fact that, okay, he argues, and this is what I understand, because he and I have had several conversations, and part of his argument is the question as to how do you communicate because to fine art, for instance, traditional art like the masks and arts that use particular types of material, there's an emotional aspect as well as the physical aspect to it. And the question is whether NFTs can successfully and can successfully communicate the emotion and tell the story that comes with a piece of artwork, not just the story of the artist, but the story of the idea or the interest that the artist is trying to communicate. Can an NFT successfully do this?
It can so the thing that an NFT is just a digital signature. What it attaches to it is metadata. So like anybody who's a photographer, the EXIF or XIF, if that's how you actually pronounce it, it's metadata to say you use this particular camera at this time with this exposure in one form or another. I think to a large degree, the NFT is this a digital signature. The metadata can actually describe all that is actually happening there. So I sell 360 cameras, right? When you look at traditional photography, you only just see one particular viewpoint. With a 360, you see everything around you. But again, it is very subjective as to what exactly you're seeing. If I'm holding a camera that is a 360 that actually captures a particular moment, there are a variety of things that actually come into play. So yeah, we can try and objectify this, but I just tell you that most things are very subjective, depending on where exactly you are in life.
Well, I want to chime in on that. You see, once again, NFTs are not just artworks. So let's get it straight. You know, there's this friend of mine, Ryan Hotscott. He's in the US and he sells dogs, okay? But he sells the NFT. And you buy the NFT, he ships you the dog. Okay?
He ships you the dog?
Yes, a real dog.
Yeah,
yes.
A real dog. Because like an NFT is just a digital signature. Yeah.
So like I'm saying, the evidence to show that you bought this is on the blockchain. Now, the good part is there's no middleman. The money comes straight to you with a lesser fee, okay? Now, there are artists who sell the digital paintings of their art and they ship you a real life painting, like or the actual painting itself. I am working on 3D printing African masks, okay? Because I research into African masks that have been lost in the stories and I attach to it. But I'm working with a brother in France to print, you know, glassware or to create glassware of the masks. And also I'm personally 3D printing some of the masks here. And the hopes are when you buy my NFT, I ship you a real thing. You see, so once again, it is not just about art. It is the technology that is making this happen and the evidence of this person owning this particular item. Now, there are also traditional artists who have taken advantage of the space. You know, you see, when an artist becomes famous, even their signature is money, right? And these artists who are on the blockchain, selling art on the blockchain, have the ability to, you know, use that same real life, you know, scenario to leverage on their success as artists. 15 years in the making, they come into the NFT space, they pull up great artwork. You know, one example is Ali Sebet, series of other people who are creating great art, and sometimes they can ship you a real painting that they took a picture of. So it is not just digital art. Of course, the metadata is attached to it, but it's the technology that is making this happen and how disruptive this technology is, and also it giving opportunities to new people. And then the smart contract that is attached to it. My sister mentioned a PFP project. In NFTs, they have what they call PFP project, profile picture, okay? Now, they make 10,000 pieces of these artworks with different, you know, characteristics. It's the same thing. It's like maybe like profile picture of my brother Daliso with, let's say, like a headphones, and then one with with the spectacles, one with some Afrofuturistic stuff, you know, and then they make 10,000 pieces of it. Now, these projects, when people buy into these projects and they own these NFTs and it's on the blockchain and there's evidence for them to show they own this, there's like a pool of money, and that is, you know, accrued for whoever created the art, and then they move into projects. So one brother, Owo is Nigerian. He created some NFTs, and he was able to give $500,000 to an orphanage in Nigeria overnight. Has never happened before.
Yeah.
So it is not just
Owo
about
sold out in 70 hours.
Exactly. It's not just about the art, it's the other things that the technology is bringing.
70 minutes.
Exactly. So that is what creates, you know, the value and makes it able to exist up to today. And so for me, it's going to be there for forever. That's what I believe. As long as this technology is around, it's going to be there.
I ask our audience who are firing questions right, left, and center. to please bear with us for a few more minutes as we tackle this final question. I would like to talk about something that Cherie brought up, and that is the convergence of arts with other forms of technology, not just NFTs. Cherie talked about how NFT technology has enabled her to be able to build a community and access her community or even sell her works on social media like Twitter, which means that NFTs haven't just changed the industry in terms of determining the value of work or giving artists their power or increasing the amount of commerce that is going on within the art industry, but they have also changed the communication within the art industry and changed the nature of the market, or should I say the venue of the marketplace within the art industry. I would love to talk more about that. The reason why is because, as some of us might know, we're used to hearing about the most expensive pieces of art being sold off at the little auctions in famous places like Sotheby's and Christie's that the average person will never ever go to. We're also used to hearing about the most valuable pieces of art in the world being displayed in the Louvre and some other places that most of us in the world will never ever go to. But I would love to talk more about how NFTs have impacted our ability to shift the marketplace, and not just the marketplace, but shift the museum itself. So, Cherie, could you start on that? And then from Cherie, we'd love to hear what Dr. Baba would have to say about that.
You know, I feel like, you know, in the traditional world or before I joined the NFT space, I never got the opportunity to like, you know, talk about my work so much, maybe on Instagram, or, you know, maybe the few friends that I have in Kenya in exhibitions and sort of explain that. And the purpose of art is to communicate and to express yourself. And you're hoping that, you know, you can reach as many people as possible. And, you know, working with the gallery, the exhibiting my work in London, in Italy, I wasn't there. You know, my collectors, I'm not there interacting with them, you know, just hoping that they'll understand, or they'll just like the work visually. And, you know, what I feel is more valuable maybe is, you know, understanding the artist, understanding their story. You know, you can't beat the interaction directly with when you're interacting directly with an artist themselves, explaining their journey. You know, there's so much that you can talk. Like right now, I can explain so much and I wouldn't be able to express the same things like in an artist statement, which, you know, that's what you're used to in an exhibition. You just have an artist statement, you have a few lines on the website, and that may not really communicate so much even about me as a person, my daily life, and all that. And now with NFTs and, you know, the community being on Twitter, you know, there's spaces there, you know, there's like a certain timeline, you know, you just wake up, people post GM even in the middle of the night, in the morning, and there's this sort of ongoing like people are active. There's just people there who you can reach to, or like you can express yourself, or, you know, you get the opportunity now to talk about your work to a more direct audience. Like there's that direct communication, and I feel like, you know, that is what I was lacking in the traditional world. Because before I hopped on NFTs, actually I was kind of almost giving up on art because I felt very stuck. But, you know, that's getting the chance to open up, and, you know, you feel seen because people maybe now can relate to your art pieces, can relate to your process, and there's a large audience, and your collectors will be there to, you know, to listen. And I think that is what has helped me sell a few pieces, you know, being able to go to spaces and just share my story, just, you know, even if I'm not talking about my artwork, talking about something else, my experiences, which is something that I never got the chance to do with it. I don't know, maybe because one thing of how Instagram is set up, But I never got the chance to experience that until I came to the NFT community, and that has been like the most valuable thing. Because you know, as Daliso, before we started the meeting, you know, we were just talking about, you know, you just wake up, have fun, try have fun, you know, talk to people, chat. You know, you may be having a bad day, but you know, there are artists, fellow artists there who can relate to what's you know, whatever issues you're going through, and you know, you have questions. I mean, it's just been a life-changing thing for me, I would say. Even if before I even started, you know, selling my pieces, I just got motivated to wake up every day and just go to NFT Twitter because of the communities there. There's people who actually see you, and that wasn't existing like prior to that in maybe in real life or in the web 2, I would say. That really didn't exist. Instagram, I think I was done with Instagram, and you know, there's just few opportunities to interact with artists in real life. You meet them at exhibition only, and you know, even if you have a gallery selling work for you, you're not meeting your collectors. You're just hoping they'll just like the work on the wall and take it. And it's different. It's different getting, you know, that feedback. Somebody just buys your piece and you get to DM them, and you know, they can explain, you know, I like when you talked about this. It's just different, and I feel like it's more valuable for artists to have that personal experience and that one-on-one interaction with their audiences and their collectors.
Thank you very much, Shuri. Dr. Baba.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't wish away what, you know, social media and the NFT community has actually achieved with that. It's made communication a lot easier. And like Sharia said, you know, there were certain places and areas you couldn't have been able to reach without the NFTs and social media. And that much, I think, social media has added to the art industry, because before now, I mean, you had to know somebody who knew somebody to introduce you to the galleries and the museums. There was a lot of bottlenecks, and even when you know somebody who knows somebody, you need to know, you know, somebody else who would actually be able to propagate your work in the right light. If you got one bad comment from a particular curator, that might just spoil everything. But there's a level playing field, you know, when it comes to the NFTs, and that much I appreciate. I think in terms of that, there's no doubt that the NFTs have been, you know, able to help the communication and accessibility of arts to everyone. It makes it, you know, available to everyone. It makes gives the artists the opportunity to reach a wider network of people. And in fact, you know, you can post something online now and the whole world sees it at the go. That's something that couldn't have been achieved without this kind of technology. So that's a big plus for this technology. Absolutely. I think that's a big plus for this technology. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Baba. To our participants, we would now like to go to the question and answer session where you will get to ask your questions. Do we have a hand raised?
Yeah, I can see one from Ian.
Oh yeah. And I've just been chatting with him as well in the chat section,
Ian,
so I'd actually love to hear from him. So Ian, yeah, you can go ahead as well. But Mahasin, thank you very much.
Ian, can you please unmute your mic and go ahead with your question? Ian, can you please go ahead with your question?
I can actually answer the questions, and maybe he can actually reply in the message section. The first question that I actually saw that he was asking was, I'd like to know if can we address the security concerns about NFT security in terms of hacking, fraud, JPEG bot being installed in the ledger, a separate website or storage infrastructure. I'll just address this as well, is that I'm touching glass, but I'll actually be touching wood, is to say that hacking most of the times is social engineering. Even in the real world, if it was not actually crypto, I can tell you quite a lot of people would still be hacked. The majority of people, even on this call, and they might actually have to disagree with me, but I know that quite a lot of them actually use the same password for a whole lot of websites, right? So if they use the same password for a whole lot of websites, and now they're getting into crypto, I'm like, guys, you're already playing on the same sort of premise that you're taking weak security practices to actually secure your funds. The only difference is that obviously with you using the same password, you've got centralized bodies that hopefully when you talk to them, you are actually the person who they expect to be talking to. Because again, social engineering is all about the fact that someone can actually pretend that they are you, or pretend that they might be like, let's say your wife or your husband or whatever relationship that you have. And that's something that actually plays quite a bit with centralized systems in a sense. And then in terms of storage, again, I'll probably just repeat this. It hasn't been repeated, but IPFS, which is the interplanetary file system, meaning that, for instance, compared to HTTPS, where it would be stored on a localized or centralized system, you can actually have the files stored on multiple people's computers. Ian, I'm not too sure if you've actually experienced torrenting. Maybe you are a legal person. You use DSTV, you use Netflix, you use YouTube, where everything's actually on a centralized system. But for anybody else, I think if you know torrents, it's actually distributed. So it means that it isn't actually on a centralized computer. There's several computers around the world where you can actually get access to the files as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Daliso, for answering Ian's question. So the next question is from Mr. Yemi Williams. I'm assuming it's a Mr. My apologies if I'm wrong. So Yemi asks, why are we worried about the future of NFTs? The future will take care of itself. Or should I say that's his opinion? He goes on to say, NFTs will provide an opportunity for Africans to share their creativity with the African community and the larger world, and possibly to monetize it without the middleman, as Mr. Baba said, he put in quotes. He goes on to say, art, music, short film, and so on, the NFTs may eventually push serious art buyers to reach out to the artists to then buy the original. So I'm not sure if anybody would like to address this. Anybody on the panel would like to address this before we go on to the next audience question?
I mean, Yemi said it right. I mean, the possibilities are so many. Like I said, and I'll say it again, NFTs are not just about art. There's so many possibilities that this opportunity is bringing. And so, I mean, in the crypto space, it is peer-to-peer sharing, right? So in the same way, I have collectors who are friends of mine, and I speak with them. Like I have that kind of relationship with them. And, you know, technology moves forward, doesn't move backward. So for me, for now, the kind of people this opportunity has brought, has given them to be able to, you know, take care of their families, that alone is enough, because I can't take care of those friends of mine's families for them. So if this is giving them that opportunity, the best. But this technology is for Africans, you know.
We have a question from Dan Torrenson, and Dan asks, how much do you think worldwide pandemic conditions has accelerated the success and proliferation of the blockchain and NFTs? That's a very, very important question. There is this big idea out there that the only reason that NFTs, or a majority or a major part of the reason why NFTs have thrived in the past 2 years is because of the pandemic. Please feel free to address this question, members of the panel.
Yeah, so, oh, Daliso, go on.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me? Okay, so thank you, Kofi, for actually allowing me to speak. I do see that Ian, hopefully Ian can actually speak, because I know that he has actually been requesting. But with us being indoors, and again, is that I'm a millennial, as in I was born in 1992. But all I can just say is that I think if more people are actually staying indoors, you actually are going to be consuming most of your content either on like a TV, on your computer, or on your phone. As in the reason why I actually looked to the left, because I was actually looking at my TV. So yeah, you just have to realize that that's the economy, right? That if everybody's consuming things online, that's where you're going to see a whole lot of value being accrued. With it being offline, and that's my argument that I actually even pose to the people who are all about like getting the land in one form or another. Just look at the top 5 companies in the world when it comes to market cap. They're not property companies, they're tech companies. The reason being is that you're dealing with ones and zeros rather than actually matter. It's not to say that matter doesn't matter, but the matter is that ones and zeros are actually quite easy to transport. Like right now, even me replying to people in the messages compared to the fact of having to actually send a physical letter to the person across the globe, if you get what I mean. So the things that I think it's a good thing, people just don't remember that SARS did happen. I think it was 2003, 2004 in China, and they went fully digital. So the SARS that we're actually getting right now is like SARS 2.0. So the thing is that China was already prepared, and we were literally just like on the back burners of actually trying to make sure that we could actually get things sorted. And I think that's just the way that things will actually go. I've always just been a digital head because I'm always in love of tech. For the other people who are into physicals, they probably can just give a rebuttal. I do know that Kofi did want to speak, so I'll just let him speak after this.
Yeah, thanks.
Kofi, go ahead.
Yeah, so you know, you see these kids, even adults play games. You know, we play games, we buy assets in the game. If it's a car racing game, and they've given you, if you have, let's say, a Toyota Corolla, you want a Koenigsegg or, you know, a Zenvo or something to race, you know, and that engages you and gets you to be at home. Okay, you know, think about all those that created all these digital assets in these games. Why are you playing these games for free? Did they just do that for free? You get what I'm saying? Now, when COVID came, it kind of like propelled people to, you know, get onto their devices, because that's the only way to connect with people, right? So I remember in mid 2020, I was part of a team of a company in the UK. It was actually owned by one Nigerian brother, Thrill Digital. And, you know, what we're doing was we're creating 3D models of products, and we're going to have fashion shows in 3D spaces. At that time, we haven't even heard of the word metaverse, right? We didn't have any idea about that. We're going to create a fashion show. So the brother was trying to pitch the idea to big fashion houses, because they couldn't have their fashion shows, their runway shows, and they couldn't, you know, openly, you know, display their boutique and all that, right? So it was to create these 3D environments for people to be able to, you know, interact with these fashion houses, even though we are on lockdown. So when you think about all these possibilities and the assets in games, and then over time you have brands coming in to create these spaces, 3D environments in the metaverses, in 3D spaces, where you can actually shop and get your products shipped to you in the house. You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, when you look at this whole thing, of course, the lockdowns and, you know, all those things that contributed for us to be at home propelled the idea, but we were already doing this. We're playing games, and these kids will be playing games and they want to buy coins and little assets, $1, $2, and then you come to you and say, Daddy, I want this, or Mommy, I want to buy this particular car to race, to do this car racing game. So that is where the whole thing started, you know. So the gamers, like my brother Daliso is saying, were already aware of this thing, you know, buying assets to play their games. It is just that, I mean, the kind of environment we are in, COVID and all that, made us stay in the house, and then propelled the whole NFT thing.
Thank you very much, Kofi. Would anybody else on the panel like to address this issue? Okay, so let's go on to the next question. I want to address this particular comment from Yemi Williams. If you can try and unmute yourself, Yemi, I would love to hear you speak here. It says, I believe there is an NFT bubble, just like there was an internet bubble. It will burst and there will be casualties. However, the NFT market will be stronger on the other side and different. I disagree that museums will have the control they think they'll have. NFTs may democratize the industry. And the sale of art and other creatives. This is what Yemi Williams has said. Yemi, if you want to explain what you've said a bit, please try and unmute yourself.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Sure.
Hello, Yemi.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
everyone.
being so active on this event.
Oh no, this is I love this. As Wale knows, Wale is my full disclosure. Wale and I are like brothers. We grew up together. And I remember having this discussion with him.
Wale would
I
be
think it
me.
was a year ago.
I was just going to
Okay,
ask,
Tunde.
who's Wale? When did Tunde become
Okay,
Wale?
Tunde.
When did Tunde become
Sorry.
Wale? Because as far as I know,
Okay,
Tunde, what
Tunde.
happened?
Okay, let's keep it simple, Dr. Baba. Dr. Baba, let's keep it simple. Okay. All right. So I mean, I agree with with what Kofi has said and Daliso, and even what Asifa said. Truly, when the internet bubble crashed in 2000,
on my first journey, I had
it
no
was
when I took
it was there were a lot of companies that felt that, oh, this was a new it was a wild west, new frontier, and a lot of things went wrong. I think it's going to happen. People are going to buy artworks or other things that are not going to have value 5-10 years from now. And the industry will then, reorganize and then expand as we have the internet 2.0. And it's going to be very interesting. I agree with this, if that we're looking at art as only one aspect. There's music. You can create an NFT where people, different artists or unknown artists from all over the world can collaborate and it can be sold. You can have tailors or fashion designers, put out their work and say, and if you buy that NFT, perhaps with your measurements, they can have something bespoke sent to you. There are immense use cases. I'm sorry, my background is finance. I've been in finance for the last 22 years. But I love technology. I always have, and I'm always ready to jump, feet into whatever is new. So it's an interesting space where there are so many use cases. And the smart contracts, like Kofi said, would allow the kind of customization that we probably have not even thought about right now. That would bring, value to a lot of people. I think it's a really, really interesting time. I'm not sure. I disagree with Dr. Baba on the museums having control. I think they will exist side by side. Think of it like the music industry. I don't know whether a number of people know Chance the Rapper. A few years ago, I think he put out his first album on Spotify without going through a traditional record label. So think of the NFT space like that, where you still have the traditional record labels all over the world, still putting out music, owning libraries, but you then have some people who have gone straight to streaming without them, and everybody coexists today. And so that's what is going to happen. It's already happening with banks, for example, where you have digital banks, neobanks, challenger banks, alongside legacy banks, and you're then also beginning to see that some of the neobanks or challenger banks will set up, even if it's just one physical structure. even an Amazon has physical structures in the US right now where people can walk in and still buy stuff. So they will exist. It's going to be a hybrid. I don't see anything dying out entirely, but they will exist in some form of the other. And it's just for everybody to, for me, keep an open mind. Fortis Fortuna Advert. Fortune favors the brave.
Okay, we saw that up there on top, and I was wondering if you wanted us to read it out or if you're going to say it yourself. So thank you for saying it yourself. Yeah. Do we have any additional contributions from other members of the?
I think if I can just chime in, I love what Yemi has said, and I feel like generally artists are the first people to get to Web3 before the institutions and the galleries come in. People are sort of running away from them. We weren't, not many people were really thriving. Not many of us were really thriving with the internet in Web2. And there wasn't space even for people like who do 2D art, animations. There wasn't so many ways which you could make money out of it. And so artists have sort of running away, or we've come to Web3 to build something beautiful for ourselves. So even if, yes, the migration of the institutions of the museums they'll definitely have to come in at one point. But I like what you're saying, because I also sort of feel they won't be the bosses, they won't be the one calling the shots at the end of the day. Yes, they'll come in, but we'll sort of have to find some sort of balance and know how we're going to work together. Because at the end of the day, with the way we the selling art through NFTs is setting up, we are building community. And I think most of us will prioritize the artist over anything else, like the artist gaining the most. And yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. It's gonna be very interesting to see them come in, and maybe have to sit at the back and sort of I don't know, have to bow down and see how they're gonna have to bend and work with artists. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to, oh, go on.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
Thanks. So just to add to what my brother Yemi said, and to reaffirm what my sister is saying, I think a week ago, Nas, the Grammy Award winning artist, released an NFT that gave him the opportunity to give back to his fans. So there were two songs, Ultra Black and one other song, and he gave out royalties to collectors of that NFT. So from now till whenever the song exists or whenever the collectors are alive in this world, they'll receive royalties. That has never happened before. If you ask any music artist, which I used to be one, it is so difficult to get your royalties
around the world.
It's so difficult to being an artist and making money from your music publishing or streaming, and this time, like Asif was saying, it's more community based. So think about getting an NFT as a fan, but you are still getting paid being a fan, and that is what this technology is bringing. That is the opportunities it's bringing. New opportunities to totally new people who were never in the loop. And how good is it for somebody you cannot help to be able to help themselves in this ecosystem we live in? You get what I'm saying?
Kofi, you said something very, very significant there. At least it rings true to me. New opportunities to people who were never in the loop. That's literally the whole world, save for a very small handful of people who were at the very top, who were dictating, raking in all the money, and determining how things went. So thank you very much for that. Our next question is coming from Rafilo. I can't pronounce that, my apologies. Please feel free to introduce yourself and then ask your question or make your contribution to the conversation.
Hi, not a problem. So my name is Rafilo, probably, as is clear, but I just have a question for Dr. Baba. he was saying that he sees the bubble bursting, right? And I wanted to know, what does saturation look like if at that point when you're saying that the bubble might burst, what does saturation look like at that point? Is it just people not buying NFTs anymore, or is it like, if you can just provide some clarity on that?
Okay, basically, you know, like with everything in life, you know, if there's something that's novel now, it's starting this new innovation, there's the tendency for everyone to key into it and start to buy it. It's because you've got a market saturation at the end of the day. You understand that? So when you get to that point, you're going to have people coming in to define for you which one you should buy and which one you shouldn't buy. At this point in time now, yeah, it's free for all. You can have access. Everyone has access now. There's no regulations. It will get regulated. Google regulates things right now. There are certain things you can't post on Google. And it was a free for all. It was a free market before. You could post pretty much anything. But now it's been regulated because they're trying to, you know, define what sort of things you can't post on Google now, even though they tell you it's free resource. They regulate stuff that's on it now. So that happens for everything. But for now, everyone has access. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baba. We appreciate your contribution there. So the next person who will be...
I wanted to touch on what Dr. Baba said.
Go ahead, Kofi. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So, yes, there's definitely going to be some form of, you know, control, okay? But once again, NFTs are not just artwork. So if it has to be the arts industry, I mean, things like that could happen. But the idea of the blockchain technology and what smart contracts are able to do, even in ticketing, just ticketing, right? You buy an NFT ticket, and it is able to cut, you know, a lot of clumsiness in the old traditional system. So the technology is still going to be here. Web3, as it were, is decentralized. And so when you hold your wallet, they have this custodial and non-custodial wallet. So you have all these things coming into play. Of course, there will be some regulations like we're talking earlier about copyright and who owns which art. Some of the laws of the international copyright body would work, you know, and it's without doubt is going to be something that would still function. But the technology on which NFTs run, the blockchain, is going to solve a lot of problems. And if it is in the art industry that you're going to have regulations, that is really fine. There are also possibly going to be regulations with cryptocurrencies. But with the technology that makes this run, it is only going to improve, you know, as the years go by.
Thank you very much, Kofi. Koki Tao, please, could you, I've been trying to get you to unmute.
I have been unmuted.
Oh,
no,
okay,
I did
thanks.
unmute. It's just that I wanted to give the other speaker an opportunity
Okay,
to
thank you very
speak.
much.
Thank
go
you so
ahead.
much for letting me speak. I wanted to find out, because obviously we are talking about non-fungible tokens, and I guess in this particular sphere, it would be around the art world. Before the advent of Web3, you couldn't really own anything. There was no way for you to have digital ownership of assets other than just your domain. So I think my question would be centered around traditional art markets, traditional museums, and how they foresee their position within the space, because it is decentralized. This is the first time we're ever having this type of kind of, I can call it like a revolution in a way, whereby there's no one centralization of power. So whilst I do appreciate, like, and obviously we've gotten immense joy and knowledge from traditional art structures, how would they foresee their future? Because from where I'm sitting, it would kind of be like traditional broadcasting networks versus Netflix. You know, the way that we consume media is completely different to how we consumed years ago. And I think it can go over to Daliso's point whereby, you know, and I think the doctor did touch on this, that if you have a VR, you can have like a totally different experience. I know I've gone into different experiences in VR that I found absolutely magical. So do you think that museums and other traditional art models will be able to evolve to that point to still be, you know, curators and relevant in this space?
So, I mean, when you are new in the NFT space, normally you have to be onboarded. Most of the NFT spaces are community based. Most people know themselves, right? And that is what came with Web3. Web3 is more about community based, teamwork, let's do this together kind of thing. And so, of course, there are new artists who come into the space who may have to be onboarded or, you know, helped to be shown to the public, you know. But as it were, other artists are also able to speak for themselves. So some artists come into the space and they gradually build up. But there are also people who, you know, connect others to certain spaces. There are also artists who are so good, they get noticed by, you know, big institutions like Sotheby's and Christie's. Like we have one sister in Australia. Even there's one sister in South Africa, Lethabo Huma, and I've forgotten this Ghanaian sister in Australia. They've had their works, you know, auctioned on Sotheby's at Sotheby's, and these are really prolific artists. And so you have all these dynamics coming into play. But as it were, you will need some people to do that kind of job, to adore you or show you to the space. Others move, just like it is in real life.
Thank you very much, Kofi, for your contribution there. Asif, I believe you're up next. Can you unmute and go ahead and share your question or contribution with us?
Good morning, everyone. Great listening in, some really valid points. I'm actually based in the UK, and first and foremost, a confession, I'm a survivor of the dot-com world. You know, I kind of created a community portal back in 2000, but when, you know, the internet was kind of in its infancy. And as you know, the technologies have evolved from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3, I think people have finally realized that the key to success of anything is community. And blockchain is just an enabler for us. It can help resolve so many problems. But first and foremost, we need to kind of take a step back and actually say, you know, what are the actual use cases we're trying to address? What are the issues we're trying to address? You know, whether it's in art, film, in philanthropy, any of those. And then you come on to the topic of non-fungible tokens, and you know, everyone's kind of been asking the question about the bubble. If you look at what NFTs are at the moment, and you ask the average person who's new to crypto and blockchain, they'll tell you NFTs are all about crypto punks and, you know, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and it's all about, you know, collectibles. And I think that's where we're kind of missing a big point. Because for me, when I look at NFTs can offer us a whole lot more. We're literally scratching the surface. And so, you know, we can kind of embody tokenized experiences, deliver a lot of value add throughout the whole NFT ownership model. And that's when we start delving into that, and you get this sense of community and ownership and true value from the NFTs. And then the whole question around the bubble bursting goes away. Because if you're saying to me, well, you know, there's so many of these NFTs and it's all art, then yes, I do believe that the bubble will burst, because what exactly is the problem we're trying to solve. It's just, you know, exclusive communities again. And the whole thing with blockchain, it really should be centering around inclusivity and empowerment. And if we can really focus on those two key points, I think NFTs can help resolve so many of the issues we have around the world and really create a sense of pride, you know, empowerment and inclusion. And I think that's the point I just really wanted to make, having kind of been through the journey from actually, and I started on Web 0.1, where we were kind of dealing with dumb terminals and, you know, black and green displays and talking on bulletin boards. And it's amazing how, you know, 25 years later, the bulletin boards are back. It's called Discord, and everyone's on Discord channels chatting to each other and creating this sense of community. So I think we mustn't neglect the true potential of blockchain and what that brings us, and we need to embrace it rather than kind of trying to take it off at a tangent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the panel like to respond to what Asif has just said?
Yeah, I mean, well said. Whatever you said is what I stand for. It is not just about the art. No, it's the technology on which this runs.
Okay. I noticed, Kofi, that you have said that many, many times, which leads one to understand that you believe that it's a point that needs to be emphasized, or a point that people are missing in the discourse, or within the industry, or perhaps even outside of the industry. So Ian, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I think I'll just make a final comment, just to touch on some of the brilliant points which are brought about by some of the participants in terms of what's the value. Like I saw a really good point about what's the value of the NFT after 5 to 10 years. And then there's also a very good contribution from the gentleman from Web1 who built the forum, and he was there in the early days of Web1. And he said basically that what real world issues will it solve? And just to make a final comment, I think primarily we have to look at what's happening in terms of Web3. Is it truly decentralized? Is it actually going to allow anybody to, you know, freely enter? What's like in terms of the user experience, the UI UX problem that's challenging many layer 1 blockchains. Like for instance, I'll give an example of Solana. If you look at Solana tokenomics, you then ask yourself, okay, is Solana really decentralized as much as it's selling that it does a lot of things, and is it doing like what it's expected to do, or where will it be in a couple of years from now? It's not to say anything bad about anybody who loves Solana on this forum, but I believe that for NFTs, we have to solve the real world issues and also provide some of these luxury ones. You know, I feel like there are people doing a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, there's a lady who sold a fart in a jar, for instance. I feel as an NFT. And when I saw that, I just started laughing because I said, okay, what problem is that going to solve? And, you know, more or less the economic, what I would say, primarily people's motivations to enter the NFT space are purely marginalist. It's based on profit. And when we now talk about,
do you feel this is a bad thing?
Real world problems. No, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a market. A market doesn't care about emotions or how I feel or somebody else feels. I just feel like for us people, maybe, or some people who are trying to do something useful in the space, especially, you know, some of the artists here who are very esteemed. I think like for Africans, especially in the culture and creative industry, it's what you'd call like an underutilized tool. So the more we educate ourselves in how to maneuver the NFT space, like for instance, which platforms to be on and which platforms to avoid. For instance, let's say you could jump onto a platform and it's a complete rug pull. So they're getting people to join. They'll tell you, okay, fine, you need to load up your wallet with ETH, and then the platform disappears. You don't know where it went. I'm not giving something like, I don't know whether it's a real definition of something which has happened, but I'm just trying to, kind of define rug pulls and what's technically happening in what we call the bubble area of NFTs. So yeah, I feel like we just have to see how the space evolves. I think what the Shark Tank investor is doing right now in terms of his investment in NFTs, utilizing them in brands such as watches, jewelry, and whatnot. I feel like that's something impactful because besides using the NFT technology to use a digital certification to provide like a historical element to whatever it is that you're buying. So I feel like the space will evolve. What it is right now, I'm a bit skeptical about it. So yeah, those are my 2 cents. Sorry for taking up too much time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a quick question, if you don't mind?
Please go ahead.
Again, I just wrote it in the chat, but it's something I'd like to address as well, because I've been in many rooms, especially on Clubhouse, where lawyers discuss a lot about, again, artists' rights and stuff, because as much as, again, everything that's been said here is great about, ownership, IP and everything, but there was something about also a sense of the need to also lawyer up at some point, because again, your art is your art as long as somebody doesn't, the ease of counterfeit or again, somebody said about pirating as well is real. It's still the wild, wide web out there. And so can anybody address quickly that? Again, I don't mean to take too much time too much, but will there be this sort of onslaught of lawyers coming on the NFT platform when it becomes sort of a normal thing that people sell their art on? Just want to touch on that.
Thank you for mentioning this. I'm actually a lawyer. That's what I studied in school. And so it takes restraint for me not to address or bring up the legal issues involved in some of these evolutions or disruptions within the blockchain and cryptocurrency industry. But I try not to do it because I feel like it would complicate things in certain platforms. For instance, this particular conversation was designed to focus on the industry itself rather than things like the legal aspects of things, which would go outside of the art industry. So I just wanted to put that out. On the other hand, I would say that there are already a lot of laws in place that address issues of rights of ownership and proof of ownership. And yes, you're quite right. As things progress, people, artists particularly, because of the nature of their work, might find themselves having to lawyer up just to ensure that they are able to reap the benefits of their work and prevent dubious third parties from stealing the works that they have done, or stealing the ownership or the rights to ownership or the claim to ownership of those works. So people who are passing other people's work off as their own, simply for the sake of saying that I did this, or for the sake of the profits that are to be made from selling those artworks or projects, and people who are part of teams who have worked on teams to release NFT projects, and those projects, and for some reason they find themselves at loggerheads with other members of the team, and therefore find themselves having to resolve any issues that might come up. using the law. There's so many avenues. What I believe will happen is that just as in the way that we have smart contracts that are able to impute terms and conditions, because from the perspective of a lawyer, a smart contract isn't just a code that allows you to impute certain terms and conditions. It's actually a contract in itself. And if as a contract, it can provide certain rights and benefits and privileges to certain parties, then you can also insert legal rights. This is what I believe. This is my perspective and my understanding and my expectations, that the smart contracts behind these NFTs will evolve to a point where they're able to use them to protect their rights. They will also evolve, the marketplaces themselves will also evolve to a point where they are able to ensure that the true owners of works are able to benefit from their work to the exclusion of others or majorly over and above others through the contracts that they make artists sign and through the terms and conditions that they apply on their platforms. When it comes to, I say this because when it comes to the issue of counterfeiting and passing off copyright and so on and so forth, it's more an issue for the platforms, for the marketplace, for the NFT marketplaces than anywhere else. So that's what I would have to say about it right now. I don't know if it satisfies your inquiry, however.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yemi, I see your hand up. Please go ahead and unmute your mic and make your contribution. For the sake of time,
okay, I just wanted to
contribution now, the last one for this particular event. For those who have additional questions or contributions to make regarding the subject matter, please feel free to join us on the CoinTalk page on LinkedIn, where you can ask your questions or make your contributions, and our experts will be on hand to respond to them. So Yemi, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Very quickly, I think my personal opinion, I think that wherever you do have the opportunity to express what the laws are currently, I think you should. I don't think it complicates matters. I think it provides an opportunity for people who are writing those smart contracts to look at the issues and see how they can be incorporated. And eventually, like you said, it's really up to the marketplace to then see what is the best way at the cheapest possible cost to knock off these counterfeits and begin to protect people. But like I said, this is all part of the NFT bubble. And when it does burst, issues like this will eventually get resolved such that you will then have serious players or be able to seek, what's the legal word? Recompense from people who maybe steal your counterfeit your artwork. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Just to give you all an eye into the future, part of the reason why we chose not to do so in this particular episode is because we acknowledge the fact that because the industry, the NFT industry, is still very, very new, such that the main players, the artists themselves, most of them don't really know enough about it. Even fewer people within the law and other areas of business can really speak to these issues at this point in time. So that's the reason why we decided that we would create a special platform for that, to allow people to really discuss it, to bring in the lawyers and the accountants and other parties within the teams behind these NFT projects to really break down the issues involved. So I invite you all in advance. You will see the promotions around that event coming up. We'll most likely hold it as a podcast on LinkedIn or Twitter, so you will be notified about that. At this point in time, I think that we should be moving on to our closing arguments, or should I say our closing remarks. Thank you to our panel of experts, Dr. Olatunde, in quotes, Wale Baba, Kofi Obubi, Shuri Margaret Ngigi, and Daliso Ungoma. Thank you so much for everything that you have shared with us about your understandings and experience within the industry. Thank you to our participants for their patience in listening, for their contributions, for their questions, and for their interest in the industry and the topic at hand. CoinTalk thanks you for your patronage and your support, and we hope to see you again. Just to let you know, CoinTalk is a monthly event, but we have several spin-offs. The recorded version, the edited recordings of this event will be posted on YouTube and Spotify. So if you wish to go back and listen again, you can always go to those places. We will send the links to you via our social media accounts. And we will also, like I said, invite you to spin-off events regarding this particular subject matter going forward. With that, I say thank you very much. Adieu.